footprints on Slave Lake. Could you please begin by introducing yourself?
My name is Leonard Sinclair, Blair Sinclair, middle name. And I was born in actually Slave Lake in 1947, September 10th. I was born in this little log house near the Wallstrom School, and the elders kind of looked after me. I was a blue baby, and I was upside down for a month or so. They were patting me, I guess, so I could survive. But when I was upside down, maybe that's why I ended up with no hair. Not much, anyways. But anyways, I was born there. Then we moved to Mitsu. My father worked for the railroad, and he was part of the ball team. He used to come into town, but I remember when I was probably 3 or 4, we used to catch a train from Mitsu. That's where the train actually got their water from the big tank, and the parents would wave down the train and with flags or lanterns, and we used to come into town, and it was a big deal there with the train because, you know, by the time you get to Slave Lake, everybody's standing up and the train puts the brakes on, everybody goes ahead, but all these people outside are waiting for us. You know, I mean, like, I guess that was a thing in them days. I remember all these, whether it was my uncles, aunts, or whatever, waiting for the train coming in from Edmonton. Anyways, then we spent a few years in Mitsu, then we moved to Slave Lake, and we lived there till I was probably 8 or 9, but then there was 7 of us in the family, actually, and we were just about a year apart, and we had a tough time. The parents weren't getting along, and I remember getting, you know, when I was 6 or 7 or 8, picking bottles, get milk for the kids, stuff like this, you know. Then we were supposed to go to the mission, 3 of us, the older, but in them days, mission was, you know, that was a bad place, the way it was, because nowadays everybody says, here come the cops. But in earlier days, they said, we'll send you to the mission, and that was bad. But anyways, my grandmother, who took us in, because 7 of us were going somewhere, and she just raised 12 of her own. And here comes 7 of us, and we're from about 9 to 6 months. So then we moved to the old town, where we spent quite a few years till I was 16, but in between there was a lot of chores. We had to, you know, milk cows. We had chickens and pigs and big gardens and pig berries and all this, you know, like getting water, and everything was do was by hand. We had horses, and like you were sawing wood or getting hay or helping wherever. And I was raised by the biggest lake in pretty well Alberta. I still know how to swim because we were busy, you know. You were always doing things, and we loved to play ball a bit, you know. In Old Town, we had a little strong team. Go to Slave Lake, walk, go and beat them. But it was, you know, lots of discipline, which is good, you know. We ate a lot of bannock and lived in a log house. We said it was a big house, but it's 2 bedrooms. It's the smallest, very small home, but we all survived. It was great. I remember when I was about 12, 13 maybe, taking a team of horses to Slave Lake. Sister Mary, Sister Etienne had a group of girls, and here I'm in a hay rack, 12 years old. You know, this is dark, with a lantern coming from Old Town, taking these girls for a little hayride. And here I'm trying to impress the girls, probably my age or whatever, and making these horses gallop. I lost one of the girls, and she ended up in a snowbank, and that wasn't really great, but she never got hurt. But by the time I got back to Old Town, my grandmother was a little upset with me because the horses come back. They were all sweating, and here at least I made it back, anyways. But getting back to when I was about 9 years old, my Uncle Sam was coach for the little ball team we had, Pee-wees, and I was the youngest on the team. And I remember him always saying, "On your toes," you know. And then we got these uniforms. I just about practically wore like pajamas, wore into bed, because all of a sudden you get this little uniform, and it was great. Like baseball in them days was a poor man's game. When it comes to playing hockey or whatever, they call Horseshoe Pond was right behind where we were raised. In fact, if you were flying over, it's like a horseshoe. We'd go shovel and stuff like this, but hardly anybody had skates. Like it was because couldn't afford them. That's why I can't skate right to this day. But you know, we were always part of it. Anyways, the old town there was a little tough. You know, I remember going when I was probably maybe 13, going up to the trap line Christmas, and you know, with the horses, lots of bannock, and I had a 22, and I'm going up there. It'd take me over half a day to get there to the trap line, meet my grandfather, and you know, in them days, or whether there's coyotes or a few wolves falling, but the horses just kept on walking, and my grandfather would never be scared. You know, it'd be all right. So we get there with this hay and bannock and stuff. So I spend 8-9 days there. This is my Christmas holidays. But right to this day, I still have the trap line now. But being part of Old Town, I've seen so much. Back in the early 60s, when the water got high, we were haying. I think I was around 15. We had to go east where they call Edmogonies in order to get hay that summer, because everything was underwater. And my grandfather and I would be sitting out, and the rigs were just starting to move in a few. And we were sitting there at night, nice fire, and he said, "One of these days you'll be working maybe on them rigs." So actually a few years down the road I was. But I guess being in Old Town and being the way we were raised, it was great. But we had to walk to school. I mean, it was 2 miles, and the bunkhouse they called Edmogonies was about another half mile, so it was 2.5 miles we had to go. In grade 6, I remember going through a lot of teachers, and one guy that came in with a 1949 Chev was Dennis Woodard. He came from Colgate, Saskatchewan. I remember that. And in fact, he's still here, played ball. And he was our last teacher in grade 6, so he had this old Chev, but it was great. And my grandmother, when I was just turning, I was 16, just whatever, she had passed on. And there were 7 of us, and we had a tough time. 3 of the kids went to Prince Rupert with my aunt, and 3 went to Edmonton. I stayed back with my grandfather, and I didn't work so good. So about 3 months later, this was in the fall of that year of '64, I think, and I had quit school. I just, you know, I could have went and stayed with families in town, but they had their own, and why I didn't want to interfere, you know. So I had a tough time. I was enjoying school, and so I went to work, and got me into my teenage years, and working all the time till, you know, like I worked on the rigs for about 5 years. Got in through the 20s, but we played a lot of fastball. We called ourselves the Slave Lake North Stars, and we were from Slave Lake, and we traveled all over the place, from Prince George to Fort McMurray, the Blueberry Festival, Edmonton, all over. We had a super team, fastball that is, and I got onto some other teams, the Peavine Rangers, and a few others, and one year there we played in the Canadian Nationals, and I ended up winning the first base award, best all-star. But I traveled with other teams. I went to Gallup, New Mexico, Albuquerque, New Mexico, Oklahoma City with our local North Stars, and this is when I was in the 20s, and it was good. You know, we were sports was. I love baseball, and like I say, when you're being part of it, there you all of a sudden realize, you know, baseball is kind of a poor man's game, because you start playing hockey, you get all that costly, whatever. But then that's when my family came along. Married my wife. I was 34, and we had 3 kids. But when I was 36, I got an implant, a pacemaker, which I still got. It's 27 years. So still play ball, hunt, whatever. It hasn't stopped me, but I don't even know what side it is on sometimes. Anyways, I got 3 kids, and one earlier, her name is Serena, and Todd, and Logan and Blakey are the kids, and they're great. So I got Blair's my oldest. He's 27, and plays for the Winterhawks. Baseball, excellent. Brad is 25, and he plays a lot of hockey. He took us to Whitehorse, Yukon for the Arctic Winter Games. He played Junior A from the PA, Winnipeg, and now he's playing for, he played for the Spruce Grove Saints, Junior A. Now he's playing for Nate, and this is his 5th year, so we're going back and forth with Winterhawks. And baseball, they got us all over Canada, these kids. Blair too with the Western Canadians, and from Vancouver to Saskatchewan, and now he's playing the Winterhawks, which is good hockey. And my daughter is, she's got the little boy. It's my boss, her Colton. He's 3, and Pam's taking upgrading here, or she's going to taking teacher's aide, which is great. So, anyways, when it came to baseball, I coached a lot when these kids were younger. Blair was 7, and Blair was 9. Brad was 7, and we were in Mosquito, and we went to the provincials. You know, we were playing AA, and we ended up at St. Albert, and they beat us in the final. We went there. we had our equipment, but we packed ours, bats and that, in a gunny sack. There, St. Albert had theirs hanging beautiful on the fancy stuff, and here we just came out of the bush, like, you know, where are these guys from? Slave Lake, where is that, you know? But it was great, you know. We put Slave Lake on the map that day. Anyways, every year for 8 years, I missed provincials once. I got in there 7 times. That's AA, and it's a little tougher, but it's all changed now. And the last year, we were playing midgets. We got into the provincials, and half the team that I coached when they were 7 and 8 was on this team, and we ended up winning the provincials. That was Blair's group, so we ended up in the Western Canadians, where we came in 2nd, but that's a good highlight for Slave Lake, putting them on the map. And getting back to hockey, one of the first years, first team was the Pee-wee A, where Brad played, and there's quite a few other kids, Brent Hill, Lane Cafaro, Daryl Marcoux, a bunch of them, and they're all Junior A or East Coast League or whatever they're playing right now. But we won it back in 1997 or somewhere there. We won the Pee-wee provincials here in Slave Lake, and that was the first time a team won the provincials. It was great. Anyways, hockey was, like I say, I was always part of it. Couldn't skate, but I'm opening doors and helping out. Then we're getting into the the old town. We're still, we got that little place there. The log house is knocked down a little bit, and we do our stuff there. Like, we visit and camp out and enjoy a little fire and talk about the old times. And as we get a little older, and we like to take a little break. It was about 1961, 62. We were still in Old Town, and there's a rig started moving in. There's one for sure, and the population of Slave Lake was probably 300, 350, and this is near the Old Town. The rig was there and stuff, and things started to pick up. Like I guess the employees and workers, and we were still in the Old Town there, and my grandmother was still living, but I talked about she had passed on in 64. So after 64, I moved to Slave Lake, and I traveled. I worked in the rigs and around Alberta a bit, north, wherever, and but I always came back to Slave Lake because I knew there was soup and bannock available. My aunties were always helpful that way, and we always had to visit because my sisters, some of them were gone, and brothers, and so on. Getting back to the earlier days, my mother was an Olette from Foss, and she ended up having, there were 7 of us, she had 6 more, and to this day there's 11 of us, 4 half brothers and sisters, and 7 of us still living. So we done a lot of, like in our day, like I say, back in the early 50s and 60s, picking berries and chopping wood and hauling. I remember back in about 59 or 58, I was probably maybe 10, 11, going to get hay, and this is north of Old Town, in the meadows there, and the blizzard, the snow was so bad, they used to fence the stacks in, fence, we went right over the sleigh with the, that's how much snow there was that year. We had to chop the ice from the stacks. There was so much snow, and and the horses were getting a little hungry, and whether you're going out in the boonies to get wood, and it was survival. And we were raised with no power, no like you could switch on, or electricity, or running water. Sure, like they say, running water. We had to go to the river, and the one time there with a stone boat, horse, and I was getting water and went a little too close into the river, and the horse fell in. So I had to boogie back to the barn, which is probably a quarter of a mile, harness up the other one, and get him back there and pull his horse out. And meantime, my grandmother, she was all excited, but I got the horse to the barn, which is a quarter of a mile, and we had to cover him with blankets and that. Now I'm 12, 13 years old, and you had to do this stuff. And there was 7 of us, and my grandmother already raised 12, and she was always very disciplined, which is good. Right to this day, 7 of us are all still employed, and you look at the old ways, it was great. So anyways, when I'm getting a little older here, back in, or after I was married here, like raising the kids, playing ball, coaching, like I was employed by the provincial government in 1978, and I spent 21 years with the housing department, transferred over to parks, and put in 25 years with the provincial, working the north, whether it was Fort Chipewyan, Fort Vermilion, but always coming back to Slave Lake. And I guess one of the highlights in my days in being part of this is playing ball. Slave Lake, we went to the Masters here about 5-6 years ago and won the silver there in Edmonton. And we were still playing ball. Myself, be my 53rd year of playing ball, 54. And but lucky thing we have the younger generation. There's 5 of us old guys and 9 young guys to help us. So we won the league this year, which is to help out the younger guys like my son, who's a good pitcher, Blair. And last year in 2009, we went to Phoenix, a father-son tournament, and spearheaded by Ken Carpenter. And we went there with 16 of us, father-son. It was super, like, once in a lifetime, to go there. And because, you get involved with baseball like myself. I'm always there since I was this high, and it's something to see, especially get down there where everything just beautiful weather and no excuses to make an error because there's nothing there, no little bumps or whatever, like the infield and that. So it was great, and to get down there and play a little baseball, which you love, So anyways, working for the province for 25 years. I retired for a little while, for about 3 months, and worked for SL Ford for a year selling vehicles, which is great. But now I'm working for the Lesser Slave Lake Housing Authority, 6 years, and love it. You're putting a little time with the seniors in town. That's where I work, at the lodge or the manor or 86 other units, and but it's great because you're always spending a little time with the seniors, which I do, love. Spending time with them, talking to them, because they got us here, and we're going to be there one of these days, and it's a lonely life when you get up there because whether there's hardly anybody visiting them, this and that, and but which is great. And getting back to the old town there where I was raised, we always, I remember years ago, like, everybody on Sundays we used to gather, the big table. In them days, the elders, like, the 20, 30 years old, they ate first. The kids ate last, but now it's the other way around. That's just the way it was. And we had to do a lot of walking and whether we went to church, which is great, and and catechism on Saturdays. We had to go back to Slave Lake, and that's the way it was. Back in 1962, 63, I remember the population being 350. You went to the theater, and costume, my grandmother used to give us a quarter. That was your 1 week, whatever. 20 cents to get in, 5 cents for popcorn. Kind of salty, Roy Evans, but nothing to drink. Couldn't afford it. But sitting on the bench. But we used to walk from Old Town, and one little light near the theater by the forestry, and that's what you aim for, because it was, whether it was winter or summer, then you go home and you take these shortcuts, and I guess we didn't want to walk by the graveyard, a little bit of whatever. So we take a shortcut through what they call Teddy Weezer's, and a lot of us would be running. Whether you trip over a cow, you get home and there's a cow manure all over you, stuff like this. It was pretty funny. And like I say, it's when my grandmother was raising us too, like, you had a set of clothes in September, and you change them every day because you're doing chores, you got cow manure, you got this and whatever. Then maybe you got your second set maybe around Christmas if you're good. So anyways, that's the way it was. Like, it was tough, but it was great, Think about all these things and what went on, and it was great. So now I'm getting up there in age and spending a little time now to a lot of these, well, funerals and stuff people are passing on. And I guess getting in Slave Lake in 1988 when the flood happened, I was living in Slave Lake, and it was a day like you can't remember. I got home by the hospital, and next thing you know, we're having supper, and the water was in our backyard. And where is it coming from? It was coming down what they call 12th now, and all of a sudden we're getting flooded. You know, it was unbelievable. I had this big camera, and I took quite a few pictures around town, and I drove through the water, this and that. And working for the province, they found out I had a camera and taking these pictures because there's a big suit going on. They took my film, and they gave it back to me a couple of years later. But yeah, I got pictures of the flood in '88. The other thing that's really great is in 1994 we hosted the Arctic Winter Games. It was such a highlight. You know, you know, lots of volunteer. We're helping with curling or wherever the arenas, and meeting all these people from the north, and all these jets coming in, and you know, dropping, picking up people, and the whole town. It was great. You know, it was really a highlight for me to watch this, because being involved with sports, I love that stuff. And like I say, in 1997, winning the Pee Wee Provincials, that was the other thing. And you know, we're continuing on with sports, and right to this day, I go to Nate, I watch my son play, and like I say, the Winterhawks play. So, and my little grandson's he's 3, he's in Taekwondo, and he's in hockey already, so he's trying to skate. And but Slave Lake has always been, you know, my home, and I love it.
You mentioned working for Parks. What was Parks like back in the beginning? What was it like, Slave Lake, that's the Slave Lake Park?
Okay, I worked for the Parks for about 3 years, and the year was probably 1999 to 2002, I do believe. And where I'm sitting here at the Boreal Center, well, 7 years ago, when I was working for the Parks, there was really nothing here. It was a little clear space, but there were some trailers here. I and a friend of the worker I was working with, Doug Greenfield, we cleared the spot here, and here I am sitting here today in this beautiful little Boreal place, this little nest, and you know, and just south here there used to be the old highway, and when I worked for the Parks, I used to cut the grass down the old road, the old trail along the lake, and right from Martin River to Davonshire. I pull the mower with the quad, and there'd be 2 of us, and eating strawberries. It was beautiful, you know, see the odd deer, moose, bear over there, and Parks, and you know, like Martin River was the main place which they're expanding, and for a beautiful place. Go up to Martin River, Martin Mountain, and Parks were just starting, like, and the area is such a beautiful place. And just recently, the seniors where I work, one of our drivers with the handicap bus took them up to Martin Mountain. They'd never seen it before. What a beautiful sight. And they wanted to like keep going back there, but they didn't have time to go over to Martin River to see the homes and stuff like that. But yeah, it's got to, you know, we got to get out more and see this, because years ago, when Wanda, my wife's grandmother, came up, I took her up to Martin Mountain. She said, "This is just like getting close to heaven, you know, beautiful, you know." But it's something to see, like whether you go to Flat Top or Martin Mountain, but it's nice. Because we were always stuck in the valley here, and like the old town, whether it's the river or the older generation and people there. But Parks is like we used to, in our day, we used to pick berries, Saskatoons all through there, and even the beach was clean because people used to make big bonfires. There was hardly any ants. Bonfires with fire, but now I don't know. Everything is you can't do too much there. And the berries were, well, we had to survive. We had to go walk miles picking berries along there, whether you're making hay or blueberries, or I guess even right to this day, I got a home in Slave Lake. It's a big size, 1,800 square foot, but a lot of people ask me, why don't you got a fireplace? I said, all I do is turn up the heat because I chopped wood and hauled wood by hand till I was 16. And that was, just kidding. But anyways, that's what I tell them. Anyways.
How would you describe Slave Lake of 2010?
Well, 2010 now is the population is around 8,000, and I seen it grow from 300. Like the Starridge, which is the old town to me, like there was a lot of the older generations lived in Old Town, but Slave Lake was building the 350, the train, the tracks. That's brought in people from the town, the old highway. But now the population, like the oil patch, brought it there. A lot of logging and so many people coming in, and it's still a good little town because we haven't really seen a lot of our people. If you want to work, you find it. I mean, it'll be there if you want to work that bad, because there's always somebody hiring. And I've never really seen it get bad where people couldn't find work and stuff like that. Because I got a lot of Exact Kenny Carpenter, my son works there, and he helps a lot of these people, and he's right involved with sports, and he likes to hire people with, whether baseball or whether hockey or whatever. But he's all, if you want to work, you can find work. And like myself, I'm 63, and I'm trying to find a way to maybe draw UIC. I've never drawn it in my life, and there was always some work out there. And but the town, the expansion, the Walmarts, everything, the hotels and motels, it's a big, it's huge compared to when I seen it, when we used to take the horses by sleigh or wagon to town, whether you're going to church or midnight mass, Christmas, back in the 50s. And I remember, wrapped up in hay and stuff, and you're going with the bells, the horses, and everybody had the odd little jalopy. But one thing about when my grandmother died in '64, I was the first one that I found her on the couch. Anyways, when I found her this way, I knew something was happening. So I ran to Slave Lake, past Slave Lake, over to the swinging bridge where Uncle Henry lived. And that's probably just about 3 miles, but I ran all the way. And Uncle Henry finally got it. I remember him getting his battery. It was in the house, and get his old truck going, and we had to go back to, she had passed on, so I found her. Yeah. Last one to talk to her. Anyways.
Why did you stay in Slave Lake all of your life?
Well, I've been, okay, I lived in Hinton for maybe Uncle Sam, who always had his door open, and when you're having tough times, whatever, and you go, and Uncle Sam will look after you, but you had to work. And I lived in Edmonton for probably a year, and a few other places and stuff, but I always managed to come home. Well, the lake, I love the beach, I love the lake, I love getting out. It's a beautiful town, you know. Like it's, you know, I used to go to Jasper 7 years straight in the holidays and Banff, but there's so many people and stuff here where, you know, at least you can park and you got your little privacy wherever, you know, whether it's a trailer or whatever. But you know, the fishing part and the sports and just being part of the town is why I'm still here. Because my wife, she came from over near St. Paul, Bonneville, and this is home for her too. And we go to Edmonton, and but just to visit. I'd like to get home, and we have connections with. When we went to play ball last year in Phoenix, we drove. My wife and my daughter and my grandson. We stopped in Malibu, and stayed in this beautiful home. It was my nephew, Wanda, and I, Sheldon Saray, and we stayed at his place. And not very far is some big entertainers, but this beautiful big home we were at, and man, what a place. And yeah, he looks after us. We went to, back in 6 years ago, we went to his wedding in Las Vegas, family-wise. We rented a big bus. There were 33 of us, and it was a beautiful little visit, you know. 1 week on this big bus, and here we go to this wedding, and like, this is the way Sheldon treated us. And he's, well, ex-oiler or whatever. So anyways, but he's a family man. He likes, you know, being part of us. And back 5 years ago, I went to an all-star game in Dallas, and we were on CBC, Four Uncles. We went down to watch him. He was playing for Montreal. He was in the all-star. And when we get to Dallas in this 1999 Cadillac, going through snow when we left Saskatchewan, whatever, and he met us at this beautiful hotel, and he said, "Hey, Billy, you and Leonard can use my room," because he got another room, and treated us like gold. It was something I'll never forget.
Do you have anything else that you want to share?
No, I just take this opportunity to thank the editor, Mr. Deacon, and everybody that's part of this, just to share my stories, you know, because you never know, you know, you never know. Like, you know, born and raised near the old town and in Slave Lake. I like to have, you know, hopefully you enjoyed some of my little stories there as we continue on.
On behalf of the Slave Lake Adult Education Committee, I'd like to thank you for sharing your memories with us.
Thank you very much.